We're going to heat things up, Jim.
Man,
We're
it's
going to
hot in
heat
here,
it up.
man. It's
Get the
hot in
door
here.
open, get the fan on. Things are going to get toasty.
Yes,
What am I talking about? I'm talking about evidence versus allegation. I'm talking about laws and rules versus those who don't care about laws and rules. Are we a nation of rules?
Well,
and
we should be
laws?
a nation of laws and rules, and they should apply to everybody equally.
There you
And that's everybody, whether it's the Prime Minister of Canada, and I think he's defiled that, or whether it's the former President of the United States, or, yes, my beloved family, if it's the current president. If they're guilty, they need to be under the same law as Terry and Jim in the Hobbit hole is
Yes.
under the law. And that's what they need
We're
to
willing
be.
to share the laws that apply to us.
Yeah, and we know that, you really have to have your head in the sand if you don't know that a lot of the time the rich can get away with it because they hold things up in court, and the person that's taken them to court cannot afford to
the
keep
lawyers.
it going.
Yep.
And that's what, and the lawyers, well, as long as you want to keep fighting, bud, I'll keep being paid. And we know that Trump just raised at least $1 million for Rudy Giuliani. Fundraising, 100,000 a plate. Wow. Who are they trying to
for
grease whose
Giuliani.
hands? Yeah. Well, yeah, but they're doing
really
it for
doing
Trump.
it for Trump.
Because they think he's going to be the president, and he's going to remember who gave $100,000 and who didn't.
Trump does not remember anything but himself.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's whether they did that on his command.
On his command. Well, on his command, Marjorie Taylor Greene met him at his golf course in Bedminster.
Yeah,
had dinner with him.
Oh, dinner.
Dinner, breakfast? Okay. Shared a meal and conversation. And that conversation led to what we now is seeing unfolding with Kevin McCarthy caving into the crazies in his party and starting the process of inquiry into the impeachment of President Biden.
What are the charges, Terry?
They will use a standard phrase, whatever it is, a corrupt and treasonous, high crimes and misdemeanors.
They have no crime.
They have no crimes and no misdemeanors.
They're hoping to find a crime.
Yes, they are an impeachment in search of reasons to
Yes.
have an impeachment.
And that's the difference, and I hope our listeners understand that. It's different to have the crime, and then you proceed with the impeachment proceedings. But to impeach and hope to find a crime, that's not how it's supposed to work. Right. You're supposed to have
the evidence,
the evidence come forward in order to get an impeachment. So in reality, if everything is up and it's a God-fearing nation and everything, this should fall absolutely nowhere. Maybe it'll be raised in the future. Maybe Biden's guilty, but you need to find the evidence to bring this stuff forward, or all you're doing is costing your American taxpayer millions of dollars and clogging up government for something you can't prove. And this is why Pelosi held off long enough, because she said, now we have the proof that Trump, this is what he did, and the proof is in the impeachment, both by some of the members of the GOP and some of the members of the Democratic Party impeached him because of the charges.
But there were two impeachments, so both of them he was found with sufficient evidence that they convicted him in the Congress, sent the charges to the Senate, and the Senate has to hear the charges, hear the evidence, and convict him. If he was convicted by Mitch McConnell and the GOP, there would be no issue where we are today. It's all because there were not enough Republicans who would vote to impeach the most corrupt president in American history.
I believe that too. The most impeachable president that was ever
most impeached and the
And
most
impeachable.
indicted and indicted. 94 charges so far.
Yeah.
And he's going to be well over 100 by the time everything rolls through courts. And
so he's got to win, which looks like he could, and I think that's the end of democracy.
when you say win, you mean win the 2024.
Well, he'll win the GOP, and if he wins the GOP, I got a funny feeling he'll be the next president.
Okay, I'm still hoping for an outside. If this was a horse race, I'd be betting on the long shot. The long shot is a 14th Amendment, Section 3, which talks about someone who has committed treason, that they cannot be
Oh, no,
elected.
he doesn't qualify to run. And I don't know why the dragging of the heels on this.
I don't know
But it's
either.
because of pure fear. Because he does not qualify to be the president of the
In
United
a previous
States.
podcast, we mentioned Mitt Romney, who seemed to have held back a lot of what's coming out in the Atlantic.com expose and will be in the book released about Mitt Romney's career in politics coming out in a few weeks. Why people keep quiet, enabling this corruption. He didn't come to drain the swamp. He came to be one with the swamp.
Yeah, I agree with that too. And I've often been accused of, Terry has completely convinced you. It's two different
It's either
things.
facts convince you.
It's two different things. My policies, my political leaning has not waned even an inch.
You are a
and I have
fiscal
other
conservative.
but I also have other arguments against Biden and his government. That's not the subject.
No, you're
And
talking
number
policy
one, I couldn't
disagreements.
care less if you vote for Biden,
Yep.
or Trump. I'm not going to push it. I'm a Canadian.
Mm-hmm.
But there's certain things I don't like about that government, but that's not the issue. The issue is the most corrupt person, and I personally believe the most dangerous person in the world at this particular time.
Mm-hmm.
He can bring the axe down on Ukraine, and we're talking Trump. He can bring the axe down on Ukraine. He can sever NATO, and that is horrible. And he can end up surrendering psychologically to the Eastern Bloc. He could do that. He's just not fit, in my opinion, to lead a country other than to be a dictator in that country, and all he would be is an oligarch of Putin. And I think that's what he wants. My opinion.
Yeah. Okay, well,
What I've observed.
You have enough evidence in public records, and what an inquiry is supposed to uncover is stuff that we don't know from public record. So the public record on Hunter Biden, who's been investigated for 5 years now, they're trying to extend that allegation to include the Biden crime family, which is Biden at the top of that family. There has been no evidence presented in their investigations in committees, no evidence to proceed. So this is without evidence, this whole thing.
And isn't that a dangerous state?
Of course it
of,
is.
of a country. What's that remind you of? Putin. It reminds you of Russia, where I don't like your politics, so I'm just going to say you did something.
Well, it reminds me of fascism,
and
which
you'll
is
be
Hitler
thankful
before
you don't
then.
fall out a window.
And that's right. So you just dropped the name, Putin. So let's take a look at what Putin just said on the weekend or early Monday and Tuesday. I think he was at a conference. And he talked about America has no right to preach on democracy because America is persecuting Donald Trump illegally. They're morally bankrupt democracy. They should not be lecturing the rest of the world on freedom.
I was going to say Putin, but Putin don't know what he's talking about. Yes, he does. He's doing that lie crap, which he did, his latest antics. I mean, he has no idea how that plane went down with 10 of his adversaries on it.
Oh, yeah.
No idea how that
plane.
happened, flying over peaceful lands. Yeah. It just blew up.
Lost a wing.
Just fell off. Yeah. That happens all the time, apparently. So Putin knows exactly what he's doing, and he knows he's lying because he's the father of lies. So he's being directed by the father of lies, I guess.
All right, so Putin's backing Trump in 2024.
Absolutely.
What did that mean in 2016?
Yeah, well,
I know the outcome of 2016.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton, the polls showed her well up, lost. And I'm not taking credence in polls, and I believe they're wrong most of the time, a lot of the time. But really, you got to say, and I was reading one comment that made me think, before the dust settles on 91 indictments and 91 charges, 4 indictments, there will be other indictments and other charges. He will be found to not just be the most corrupt president ever, but he will be found to be either A, a spy for Putin for Russia, or B, an out-and-out traitor to America.
I think, number one, I think right now he's
maybe
a traitor.
He can be both.
In my opinion. But he might be, you might be right. I never even thought of that, a spy for Putin.
Well, I always have said this over years of looking at Trump's administration. When the Republicans speak and they sound like Putin's Russia when the talking points are the same, when the language is the same, when what you're saying about people and about others is the same as what Russia's saying, you have a problem. And it's not good.
No. Well, I often think about history, the history now. I don't know how you put that. But what is happening right now is going to be history.
We are living through it, Jim.
Yeah, we're living through history
Almost
that
tumultuous.
is almost going to be hard to believe when you read it in the future. But we're living through it, and it's my humblest of opinions that America's going to fall because of this whole believing the misinformation, all of this stuff. You said John Wayne and the church, same idea.
Jesus and John
doesn't
Wayne.
doesn't look like Jesus at all at the helm of these some of these churches. They're angry, they're gun-toting, they're everything that my Lord didn't do. And I could go into great detail. I know Jesus got mad at the Pharisees and the Sadducees. I know that. So don't be jumping back at me with this stuff. But the point is, Jesus taught what he taught, and it isn't anything you're seeing in some of the things we're seeing that are supposed to be the moral background of the of America. You're seeing angry and ready to take up guns and kill one another.
And this was supposed to be a podcast on morality and ethics. Can you be a moral person? And we were going to talk, we did talk without the mic on, about business practices and how is it possible to be a Christian, a moral business person, while you're dealing with an immoral capitalist society that is willing to screw you over, but you can't because you're not willing to bend.
Well, you might be able to, but I would think it would depend on the line you're in and the product you're in and everything else. I think it can be done. I'm just going to say it's going to be awful hard. Like Jesus said about the rich man entering into the kingdom. It's like a camel going through an eye of a needle.
Can you be a Christian politician?
Yeah, well, I'm doubting that myself.
I think that's where we're going with this.
Yeah.
We're doubting whether your values and morality guide your principles.
Yeah. Well, and anybody can say they're a Christian to get the votes, Terry.
Well, maybe that's our problem. We should say we're Christian broadcasting.
I am a Christian.
Oh, okay. Bye-bye.